Good day and welcome to our session today named Jewish Affinity Wellness Coping Strategies during these challenging times. My name is Lily Zohar-Patari, and today joining me will be Rabbi Miriam Margles, and we'll start with our land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we're hosted on the lands of the Mississaugas of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Wendat. We also recognize the enduring presence of all First Nations, Métis, and the Inuit peoples. So joining us today, as I said, is Rabbi Miriam Margles. Rabbi Miriam Margles is a member of the senior core faculty with the Institute for Jewish Spirituality, an organization dedicated to cultivating mindfulness, deepening connection, and enlivening Jewish life. She served as the rabbi of Toronto's Danforth Jewish Circle for 12 years. Her career has included serving as a founding faculty member at the Romemu Yeshiva, serving as a fellow with the Rising Song Institute, co-founding Encounter, the award-winning educational program engaging with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and recording her original Jewish music with the Hadar Rising Song Ensemble. Miriam's album, Zehayom, This Is the Day, is available at miriammargles.bandcamp.com, and we will provide that link for you. Rabbi Miriam teaches and leads by creating an atmosphere of attentive, brave, playful, and open-hearted exploration of Jewish texts and practices. Our inner landscapes, connection with others, and relationship with the wider world, all working towards healing, wisdom, and liberation. Miriam is a graduate of the Reconstructionist Rabbinical College, an alumna of the Wexner Graduate Fellowship and the Jerusalem Fellows at the Mandel Leadership Institute. She earned an MTS from Harvard Divinity School and a BFA from York University. It's such a pleasure and an honor to host you today. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Lily. I want to begin by saying that this is such a profoundly painful and difficult time, both because of the war in Israel and Gaza and everything it entails, and because of the rise of explicit hatred of Jews and targeting of Jews around the world. And I want to acknowledge that if you're Jewish, if you're part of a Jewish family, you are likely feeling a whole flood of emotions. Scared, angry, heartbroken, grieving, confused. It might be very challenging to think or focus or get things done. It might be that your nervous system is on overdrive and it's hard to settle down or sleep. And you might be feeling quite alone now. This is not an ordinary time that we're in, and whatever you're feeling is understandable, and this is really hard. That's worth naming. And it's also valuable to name that the history of anti-Semitism, of anti-Jewish oppression, has been filled with so much violence and experiences of people that Jews thought were our allies turning on us, experiences of Jews being deeply dehumanized, that it's imprinted itself on our hearts and minds and bodies. So that right now, our sense that we need to protect ourselves is enormous, and our fear and our grief are deep. And it can be hard to discern the difference between what we're reacting to that's in this moment and the deeper Jewish trauma and terror that is being pulled up. And this all impacts us. So I feel very honored to be here to offer some resources and practices that can help us become more grounded and connected as we move through this very difficult time. So I want to begin with a practice together, and you can watch this video as many times as you want and repeat the practice. So I invite you to sit in a chair and feel your sits bones supported by the chair beneath you. To really feel held by it. And to soften in the body, letting the chair hold your weight. You can let your eyes close or just gaze softly and listen to my voice. Feel your feet flat on the ground, on the floor. And imagine, know in your mind's eye that you are connecting all the way down to the earth. Our beautiful, precious earth that holds us, that can hold everything. And you can put one hand on over your heart and one hand on your belly to help stabilize and to feel the breath moving through your body. This beautiful breath of life. You can take a few deep cleansing breaths. Slowing and easing. And notice, are you safe right now? The answer is probably yes. So notice that. Let yourself be held in safety and support. And I invite you to imagine a person who loves you or a moment of care that you've experienced. And invite that person, that moment, to be with you right now as well. Generating a sense of knowing that you're connected, that you're held and supported. I'm going to sing a verse from Psalms, and the words are Min hametzar karati ya, anani vamerchavia, which means, from the constricted places I call to you, you answer me with expansiveness. I'm going to begin singing. You can keep your eyes closed. You can look at the words and follow along if you'd like as well. Min hametzar karatia anani v'merchavia min hametzar karatia anani v'merchavia min hametzar karatia anani v'merchavia min hametzar karatia anani v'merchavia.
Thank you so much for that. I feel so much more calm, and I do really feel held in this moment. So thank you for beginning that way. And I know now that we can only go deeper. I'll start with our first question. Can you please tell us and share, how does Jewish identity and Jewish heritage play a role in shaping responses to conflict and challenging times?
I think I'd like to begin by framing some core Jewish values that we bring into response to conflict, in response to difficult times. And as I lay them out, you're going to hear that sometimes there are values that are in tension with one another. And there are moments when core Jewish values are even in conflict with one another. And it is part of our engagement, how we relate to conflict and difficult times, to walk forward with all of our values, to be as rooted in them as we can be, and to discern which are the values that come to the fore and which ones recede a little bit in different moments, and we stay as true as we can to our values. So first of all, the value of community. When we face challenging times, we come together in community for support and connection. And it's a core Jewish value that we don't celebrate alone and we don't move through difficulty alone. I think it's important that there are spaces where we don't have to defend or protect anything, but we just get to be ourselves in the family of community. And I know that you have the TDSB Jewish Heritage Committee to turn to. I know that they're doing incredible work right now to support TDSB students and families and teachers. And they're also connected to the wider Toronto Jewish community organizations, so they can help you access support that you need. And I want to say that especially if you're in a school where there are very few Jews, I really want to encourage you to reach out to Sherry Schwartz-Maltz and the Jewish Heritage Committee. And of course, it's so valuable to come together in other contexts as well. It's a key Jewish value to be pursuers of peace. Bakesh shalom verodfehu, we are taught to seek peace and pursue it. So we're called upon in our lives to do all that is in our power to build bridges of peace and connection, to address conflict when we can and repair injustice. There's so much wisdom and vision in our heritage that teaches about peace, the desire for peace, the pursuit of peace, and that we seek solutions when there are conflicts that uphold the dignity and the needs of everybody involved. In Judaism, we relate to shalom, to peace, as a value, both internally, that we seek to build peace in ourselves, so that we have the capacity to bring it outside of ourselves in our interpersonal relationships, and as we strive to build peace with other groups and with nations. At the same time, it is a Jewish value to protect ourselves. Judaism is not a pacifist tradition in a simplistic way. When we're attacked and pursued, defending ourselves is also a Jewish value. We have the Jewish value of Tselem Elohim, which means in the image of the divine. We're grounded in the value of seeing every human being as created in the holy image, in the divine image, that every life is sacred, irreplaceable, of limitless worth, that we're all from the same source and that we all embody the same value. And because this is a foundation in Jewish life, that means that it's a Jewish obligation to care for the needs of others, not just our own people. It's our obligation to ensure that those who are vulnerable have food and water, have shelter and medical care. It's the foundation of our values to grow that sense of the worth of every human life into enactments of loving kindness, compassion, and mercy. It's also a Jewish value to embrace your uniqueness. I want to say, dear ones, it is good to be a Jew. We have a beautiful history and tradition, and there is so much to be proud of. To be proud of our homeland. None of this means that we're better than anybody else. None of this means that we're perfect. But being a Jew is something to take delight in and find strength and joy from. We have the value also of pidyon shvuim, freeing captives. It's very emotional. The Jewish tradition calls on us to do everything in our power to liberate those who are held captive. And in this case, there are many Israelis who are held captive by Hamas. And it's so painful that we have had enough historical experience with Jews being held hostage that we have extensive teachings and commandments about it. So we are obligated to do all that we can to free them. We have the value of tzedek, tzedek tirdof. Justice, justice, you shall pursue it. It's a core Jewish value to stand up for what's right and name what is true. And truths are complicated. They are nuanced. There are conflicting truths that can sit side by side, and we're called upon to see them all. There's deep value and commitment in Judaism to listening. Our sages teach that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we listen twice as much as we speak. I love that. And at times of conflict and when things are difficult, it is all the more important to listen. Listening is the seed of understanding those whose experiences are different from our own. We have in Judaism, I'll just maybe name a couple more, the value of generative conflict. So not all conflicts are harmful and destructive. In Hebrew, we have the term machloket l'shem shamayim. This is conflict for the sake of heaven, which is another way of saying conflict that holds deep purpose, that is for the sake of deeper understanding and the pursuit of truth held with compassion. And finally, I would say we have the value of elu ve'elu divrei Elohim chayim, which is a way of saying both this and this are truths, are the words of the divine, which is a way of saying that it is possible and essential to hold multiple truths at the same time. Our vision becomes stunted and limited when we plant ourselves in one perspective and do not understand and cannot see the complexities of all the issues at hand. So that is also an important commitment in Jewish life and Jewish heritage.
So very helpful, all of those values. Thank you for curating that and crafting that. So really so supportive at this time. Elu ve'elu, such an important teaching. Can I ask, what Jewish traditions and practices provide a sense of resilience and connection during these challenging times to support wellness?
So I began with one, breathing, quieting. Our tradition says that silence or stillness is the beginning of chokhmah, of wisdom. And it's so easy to be overwhelmed, to feel like you need to articulate a position, to fill your social media with this stance and that stance, to argue with people. We have practices of beginning with silence. And that's not silence of apathy or silence in the face of injustice, but in order to know what are wise responses and wise, compassionate, clear actions, it's so helpful to find stillness first. There's a prayer that we say every morning, Elohai nishama shenatata bi tehorahi. Source of all life, the breath, the soul that you have planted in me is pure, is radiant. And this is true of every human being. So every morning, whether you're religious or not, you can take the time to feel yourself breathing, to know the spark of goodness, of holiness within you, and to use that as the lens through which you look at others as you walk through your day. So those are a couple beginning practices. I want to come back to say a little bit more about community, which I began with. Um, it's a central Jewish practice to come together in community, whether that's in synagogue, in communal gatherings, in Jewish Heritage Club. Right now, I think so many of us feel deeply isolated, and just being together is a source of support and sustenance. We can think of it really as a kind of sanctuary and refuge. So valuable to take a break from the bombardment of news and social media feed. And we come together in community and can rest into being together. I think it's also so powerful to know and feel that we're part of a worldwide community of Jews around the world. And if you can even imagine a web of connection that reaches wide and deep. We also talk about zchut avot ve'imot, the merit of our ancestors. And so in this moment of such challenge and pain, we can imagine our ancestors right at our backs. And maybe that helps us know that we're not alone. I think it's also valuable to say that the supportive community can and should be created not only among Jewish community, but connecting with folks who are not Jewish. I know of gatherings going on right now of Jews and Muslims together, both in Israel and here, interfaith groups, intercultural groups. It's really bolstering to have a sense of connection beyond the boundaries of our own community, and to show up for one another. I want to mention the practice of Shabbat. And again, it doesn't matter if you're Jewishly observant or not, or in what way you might connect with Shabbat, but I want to bring it as an opportunity that one day a week you can turn off your cell phone, social media, take a break from the news. One day a week you can focus on just being rather than doing, on a sense of presence, on connecting in joy, eating good food together. Shabbat offers an opportunity to hold us and connect us really deeply with what is bigger than this moment of war, this time of war. And I would say that you can also relate to Shabbat, not just as a day, but as a way of being, of sacred pause, that you can have a 5-minute Shabbat in the middle of your day. Prayer. Prayer is very powerful and very helpful. When we pray for others, we make the suffering of others essential to our own care and concern. And we hold intentions, we hold people in our minds and our hearts. And how powerful to extend our deepest and sincerest wishes for safety, for captives to be freed, for an end to suffering, for those who are grieving to be held in comfort, and so on. And to imagine people we know, if you know people who are struggling, who are suffering, and to imagine those you haven't met, but you can picture someone in a hospital, someone in a bomb shelter, someone who's afraid, and pray for them. I think it's also valuable that prayer gives voice to our deepest yearnings and hopes. When we're in a moment like this, where it feels unimaginable how we are going to heal this, how this is even going to end, we can nonetheless pray for what we aim for the peace that we're yearning for two peoples to have safe and dignified lives and homes, for war to end, for our families and communities and all humanity to know no more sorrow. It can be very powerful to extend those wishes in prayer. Um, I think this is also a beautiful and wonderful time to connect with Jewish practices of any kind, whether you approach them from a religious or a cultural perspective, to notice and celebrate what's wonderful about being a Jew and how it enriches your life. There's a lot of hate that is being directed at Jews worldwide right now. And so to be grounded in the beauty of Jewish learning, of the practices of generous giving in all kinds of ways, of connecting to Jewish music, those kinds of engagements can really be grounding and beautiful. Maybe one more that it's a Jewish practice every day to notice what we're grateful for. We humans have a negativity bias. We tend to notice what is most negative, what is most difficult. And there's a lot that is painful and difficult right now. I really want to encourage you to notice that it's not the totality of what is. Every day you can practice noticing what is good, what you're grateful for. And the more that you're planted in that, the more you actually have resource to address what needs to be addressed, to give, to be involved in other ways.
Thank you. So many rich practices to choose from. And I really love that idea of just adapting to what feels right for you in the day, that it doesn't have to be a full Shabbat. It could be a 10-minute Shabbat. I think I'm going to have a lot of Shabbats in the next week. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I'm going to ask our final question. In what ways can we incorporate Jewish identity into coping strategies to help families navigate the impact of the conflict more effectively, especially when speaking with their children?
Well, I think all of the practices that I just mentioned are really valuable and important for parents, for teachers, but also to do with your children. That's a sort of valuable set of strategies that I just mentioned. Maybe I'll include just a few others. First of all, there are a lot of resources available through the Toronto Jewish community infrastructure. Just as one example, I know that there's a team of Jewish mental health professionals who are volunteering right now. So anybody in need can make a phone call to just reach out and know that there is a wealth of support there. If you can limit your child's exposure to social media, which is so filled with hateful comments, distortions, disturbing images, please do so. Limit their exposure. It's very rare that there are conversations on social media, especially right now, that are fruitful. And so encouraging your children to not post, not engage in debate online, I think is wise and helpful. And if you can't limit their exposure, parents, it's really valuable to make yourselves available so that your kids can show you their feelings and they can ask questions. You can provide them with more information. Sometimes that's particularly helpful. But particularly just being present and letting them feel, because this can be so overwhelming. Perhaps one more resource or strategy that I want to lift up is that it's really valuable to reach out to your non-Jewish friends, to colleagues, to neighbors, and to help them understand how devastating this all is for Jews and how alone Jews feel. It's helpful to name explicitly that one of the ways that anti-Semitism functions is to put total blame on Jews or on Israel and to isolate Jews. So a lot of Jews have not heard from our non-Jewish friends, that people get quite confused in believing that you have to choose sides, or that if you affirm the safety and dignity of one people, that you have to negate or justify the deaths and suffering of the other people. And that's true both with Israelis and Palestinians. And it's a false dichotomy. So I would really encourage reaching out to non-Jewish friends and saying, please be an ally to me. That doesn't mean only to me, but we need our allies showing up for us in support, in witnessing, in understanding the impact of all of this on us.
I know that there are many meanings and hats that a rabbi wears. And today I just want to thank you so much for the teaching, the deep teaching, the knowledge that you've imparted, the skills and the practices, for bringing us back to that and allowing us to ground in that in a much needed time. And most of all, I'd like to thank you, Rabbi, for your spiritual leadership today. It's needed and much appreciated, and it goes deep into our hearts. So from my heart to yours, thank you. And peace be with us all.
Thank you so much, Lily. And I'm grateful to the Toronto District School Board and to Shamin and to everybody involved in putting this together as such a valuable resource. May peace truly come soon. Peace and justice, dignity and safety. Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Be well, everyone.